remarks and bring out some issues from our side. Clerk to Parliament and your able deputies, coordinating director, gentlemen and ladies of the media. On behalf of the Minority Caucus, let me thank you for the support since we came into the 9th Parliament. You've given us a platform for our views to be heard, and we appreciate that. But as our teachers will always write in our report cards, there's more room for improvement. To us, there are a few concerns we have. One, it is our view that when it comes to legislative activities, the NDC majority's legislative agenda has basically focused on doing some policies and rolling out new social intervention programs that we believe that if they continue old policies of the MPP administration in the spirit of continuity in governance, it will help our country. We've seen 33 bills that were fast-tracked under certificate of urgency, a procedure usually reserved for emergencies. We've not been happy about it. I hope that I will get the majority leader's assurance to allow for more engagement. So that is one major concern we have, and we pray that that will be addressed. Then, very controversial omissions. The anti-LGBT bill, despite bipartisan public support and NDC's campaign stance, it was not brought to a final vote in 2025. The majority claims that they are ensuring the bill is properly handled, but this remains a potential flashpoint. So we ask ourselves, but they were okay with the bill and they pushed. Now you say consultation. We see some bad faith. To us, we think that they use it to win elections, and now that the stakeholders in the governance ecosystem are pushing at them, they are finding a way of doing some go slow. We also believe that government's approach to social intervention and taxation has been that incoherent. You may recall that by end of 2024, certain programs were struggling. 2025, certain programs were struggling. And while the NDC has condemned some of our governance staff, they themselves, in 1 year in office, we have not seen any major shift in terms of governance. Apart from the gold board that they've established, which is helping to stabilize the city because now they are trying to centralize the purchase of gold and all. Other sectors, agriculture, there hasn't been any major investment. Look at their budget 2026. And then also, if you look at their own flagship program, the 24-hour economy, they say 1 job, 3 shifts. We've not seen much in that area. So we pray that we'll see a comprehensive policy direction that would lead to real-time economic growth, where jobs will be created. So far, we don't think we've seen that. Rather, we've seen more and more of the youth who have lost their jobs as a result of the Chief of Staff's directive to the various ministries and agencies. They said they were going to deal with those who were recruited after the 2024 election. But what we saw was that people were even recruited as far back as 2017 were all sacked. And our motion to get the matter investigated by Parliament is still hanging in the balance. We pray that we're able to get Mr. Speaker's audience to fully hear us so that a body is set up to look into that matter. Cost of living and inflation. Yes, we've been told that inflation has dropped sharply. But many families are still not feeling that real relief, because if you take electricity tariffs, government so far has increased electricity tariffs up to 27%. It is huge cost to the ordinary Ghanaian. And whereas they took away the e-levy, they introduced the Dumsor levy, meaning that every liter of petrol you buy, you pay 1 Ghana cedi. So more Ghanaians are being burdened more than the e-levy that they came to repeal. So again, there isn't much relief. Ghanaians are being burdened the more. I've spoken about the unemployment situation, but let me give you the real numbers. The report is that we have some 34.4 youth unemployment rate, and this is very unacceptable. The question is, where are the jobs, given all the promises? While the NDC was quick to roll out programs on paper, we hear a Jumara National Apprenticeship Program in Kokong. Well, they are paper promises, but in reality, what are the tangible outcomes? Even if any existed, they are scanty. And this is their year 2. The honeymoon is over. They have cancelled the 1D1F. In its place, there is no alternative policy program for the private sector. I've not heard the Minister of Trade and Industry announcing a major private sector initiative to create economic growth. Zero. Yet they have cancelled the 1D1F. They promised public sector reforms, but so far the minister responsible for public sector reform cannot be found. We've not seen any major announcement, even in the budget, as if that ministry is non-existent. So in terms of public sector reforms, we are yet to see any serious intervention. We hold a view that in this meeting, the majority should be more accommodating. They must hear us. They must allow the minority to do more advocacy. We expect Speaker to be admitting more and more of our motions. Last year, we went through a lot of frustrations. You file a motion, decline, and sometimes it comes at a late hour, 11th hour. A typical example was the motion we filed on the CJ nomination. We filed it on time, and we wanted to advocate our issues on the House floor over 2 weeks. It was midnight of the Friday preceding the Monday where we were going to do the vetting that the clerk communicated that our motion has been rejected. I mean, that was quite frustrating. And you know, when we tried to deal with our issue at the vetting, the majority leader decided to use a tactics of point of order to keep us struggling. But it's all part of politics. He has his strategy. We must also have our strategy. But we think that the essence of this parliamentary politics is to give every party stakeholder the opportunity. So we look forward to much more engagement on that front. To conclude, I would say that the minority has not been obstructive. We've been largely cooperative. If you look at last year, the ministerial nominees, only 2 or 3 were voted on. But almost all of them, we took them by consensus. And in fact, we approved them on record time because we took a view that we don't have to allow the ministry for civil servants to operate. Government needed to have the ministers to take responsibility. So we set a record time approval for them, which has never happened in our Fourth Republic. Again, if you look at most of the bills that came through regular channels, we cooperated with them through winnowing, through amendment on the floor, to take them by consensus. Government programs that came, we raised our critical issues, but we were not obstructive. We understand the fact that governance must have a seamless, space. But at the same time, we must not yield to our duty to scrutinize. I have been a majority leader before, and I know how difficult it is to run government business on the House floor. So I'll be the last person to deliberately frustrate government business. That notwithstanding, I have a duty also to democracy, to hold the government to account. And that has been our work. It's not everybody will be happy with us, but we leave our records for history to judge. Thank you very much indeed. And sorry, I have to rush out because my colleagues have already taken the lead to the flag bearers' residence. Leader, thank you for indulging me. But don't throw many more low blows in my absence. I know you're a gentleman. You won't take advantage of my absence to hit me hard. At least just respond.